Thank you for tuning in to the Muffed Punt podcast. My name is Brandon, and I am joined today by Ralph and by Paul. How we doing today, fellas?
Tired, but ready to do this.
Doing good, guys. Doing good.
So we're going to start things off as we always do with our game of the week. I think this might have been the hardest week for us to try to actually figure out what was going to be our game of the week, because there was several games that were 3 or 1 point games to pick from. But we all settled on the Arizona Cardinals versus the Seattle Seahawks, Arizona pulling it out in overtime, 37-34. I didn't really know what stats to go with first on this one, so I think we'll start with Russell Wilson. He was 33 of 50 for 388 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He also had 6 carries for 84 yards. But I think the one that sticks out to us has to be Tyler Lockett. 15 receptions, 200 yards with 3 touchdowns, all of their touchdowns coming via Tyler Lockett. On the other side of the ball, Kyler Murray, 34 for 48, 360 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Kyler Murray also had 14 carries for 67 yards and 1 touchdown. DeAndre Hopkins, 10 receptions, 103 yards, and a touchdown. Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals had plenty of big plays on the primetime stage Sunday night, but none were bigger than in overtime, during which they stunned their rival Seattle Seahawks to shake up the NFC West standings. Russell Wilson and company dominated conversation for much of the night, with the one-time MVP frontrunner finding Tyler Lockett for 200 yards through the air and helping Seattle go up 10 points late in the fourth quarter. Arizona's injury-riddled defense did not give up, however, forcing overtime and then picking off Russell Wilson in the waning moments of the game to set up a game-winning Zane Gonzalez field goal. On the night that saw Murray flash with a pair of early 75-yard scoring drives, both capped by picture-perfect touchdowns to wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins and Christian Kirk, as well as the late-game comeback fueled in part by Arizona's D, Wilson was a bit off, overshadowing some of the beautiful highlight reel throws and some of the momentum-shifting head-scratchers. The Seahawks led late, but the Cardinals closed on top, taking a 37-34 decision to improve to 5-2 and hand Seattle its first loss of the season. I want to go to Paul first on this one. Paul, what did you think of the game?
I think that you actually chose the wrong stat to start out with. Tyler Lockett, very impressive, obviously. But for me, the standout stat was DK Metcalf, 2 receptions, 23 yards. He had Patrick Peterson trailing him for the vast majority of the night. And I know that people are saying that Patrick Peterson isn't what he used to be, but dang, did he shut down an amazing wide receiver. I thought that this was a great game. I think this is probably the best regular season game I've ever seen. There was a lot of back and forth. When Kyler Murray threw that 1 interception in the fourth, I thought the game was over, and I thought the Seahawks were going to win. Then I thought that the game was over when they were going to kick the field goal in overtime. There was so much back and forth in this. It's nice to see that Russell Wilson is still a human being after all, and that was fun because he's too good, and I don't like that because he doesn't play for my team. And it's kind of annoying when things like that happen. It'd be like, I don't know, watching. That's probably how LeBron James would feel if Michael Jordan was in the NBA. Like, oh, I'm so good, but I just can't catch him. So, but it was a thrilling game. The other heads-up plays that I really liked were right at the end. Larry Fitzgerald was running after whoever on his team had the ball so he could grab the ball while they were still on the ground and give it to the ref to set so that they could get the next play going. That saved them for sure right at the end when they kicked that game-winning field goal. But heady veteran play. This was a very, very fun game to watch. What do you think, Ralph?
What I think is Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett together are just an insane duo. And having to go against them in fantasy in the same week was absolutely brutal. I don't really talk about fantasy too much, but this week I was playing a guy that had Russell and Lockett. Russell Wilson scored almost 40 points, I want to say. And then Tyler Lockett scored 55 fantasy points this week. 55. That was half of my score, my overall score. So I mean, what I think is they're unreal. I mean, that catch he had in the back of the end zone, watching that in real time, you're like, no, he didn't get it. And then
I thought that was out of bounds. I did not think that was a catch. I was amazed that he caught that.
I mean, you got to give those guys credit. I mean, Tyler Lockett, his body position and his body control on catches is, I mean, I think that game, I think that's the best game a wide receiver has played that I've watched, actually physically watched the game that I've seen. I want to say ever. I mean, that guy was all over the field, 200 yards. Just incredible. I mean, Paul, you bring up a good point. DK Metcalf was kind of shut down, but that rundown that he chased down, was it Buda Baker? Is that who intercepted the ball?
Yeah, that's the best just sheer effort play I've ever seen in any sport that I can remember. That was amazing.
Every stride he took, it seemed like he made up like 5 feet on the dude. I mean, it was just incredible to watch. And crazy, crazy, crazy game. Really entertaining all the way down to the end. Russell Wilson is there, like you said, he kind of came back down to earth a little bit, looked a little human in that game, throwing 3 interceptions. Does that hurt his MVP chances? I don't think so, because for as much as he hurt the team, I mean, look what he did. I mean, is there anybody in the league that throws a prettier long ball than Russell Wilson?
Yeah, he's had several catches several throws throughout the entire season that it looks like he just throws it up into the heavens, and then it just happens to fall down in the exact right place. The only game I can think of that was better as far as wide receivers are concerned, and it's only because it was just insanely impressive, was Randy Moss and that Thanksgiving game versus the Cowboys back in the day, where he had like 3 catches and they all went for touchdowns. And I think he had like over 150 yards receiving on 3 catches.
Yeah, that's a good game, but I mean, that's just a big play receiver. And I mean, that's Randy Moss in just a single, like, 1 game sample. He took plays off. He didn't always hustle. He forced his way out of Oakland. And I mean, not to knock him too much, because he's obviously, I think he's probably the most talented wide receiver to ever play, but he, in my mind, can never be the best because he took too many plays off. But I think that was a good game. But when you have 15 catches, multiple ridiculous catches where you're getting your body into the end zone like that, I got to give that to Tyler Lockett ahead of Randy Moss. But that might just be personal preference.
What about you on that one, Ralph?
As far as better game?
Yeah, like, would you rather have had the Randy Moss game from your wide receiver or have the Tyler Lockett game? Would you rather have 15 for 200 and 3 scores, or would you rather have 3 for, I think it was 160 and 3 scores?
Well, I mean, 3 scores is 3 scores. I don't care how you get them. But, from how do I say this? From a pure effort standpoint, I mean, Tyler Lockett's game the other night was incredible. Like I said, he was all over the field, and the body control, the touch, I mean, right out of the gate, I knew I was in trouble because that first long ball. I mean, he one-handed it. I mean, Patrick Peterson had perfect coverage on that play. I mean, there was nothing more he could do other than extend his arm, go gadget style, to stop the ball from getting to Lockett. So. From that perspective, I'll give the edge to Lockett, but it is pretty incredible to have, such a small amount of targets and have that many yards and that many scores. But, where was he the rest of the game? Did he have, how many times was he targeted? That kind of thing. I'd like to see that to compare it. But from a full game perspective and knowing that I watched the whole game, Lockett's the one for me there.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of fun to watch that game. The DK Metcalf play, the memes alone from that have been absolutely amazing.
Fire.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. I've really been very appreciative of the internet this week for the hot fire it's been bringing, serving up the spicy memes. I really feel like it's for Seattle. It's just like such a back and forth between, is their offense is just going to outscore everybody, or is their defense going to give up enough points that their offense just can't keep up? How many games are they going to end up having this year where it's the one or two plays that Russell ends up making a mistake off of, or the one catch that DK can't make, or what have you, that ends up costing them the game because their defense just can't keep guys from scoring?
Right.
And I feel like we're going to get into this a little bit later, but it's almost like the Dallas Cowboys situation, but Dallas just can't put any points on the board, let alone keep up with somebody else.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's a great thing. We'll get into that more later. So, any other thoughts on the game of the week, guys, before we wrap that one up? I think DeAndre Hopkins had a great game, but it just, like you guys said, just overshadowed by the whole Tyler Lockett situation. You don't often see 15 receptions in one game. It's pretty fantastic.
The only thing I would add to anything here is, and lest we forget, a consummate pro like Larry Fitzgerald surpassing Jerry Rice for most receptions with, a single team or in a single stadium, I think it was. He's just one of the best wide receivers to ever play the game, and he does it in a way that is not detrimental to his team. You never see him get in trouble for off the field stuff. I know we're going to get into this a little bit later, but the whole Antonio Brown situation and the diva aspect of things. And, I'll take one Larry Fitzgerald over one AB any day of the week. I just will. From a team perspective, from a personnel perspective, from a human being perspective, give me Larry all day, every day. Talent wise, yeah, Antonio Brown's going to get him on that, but I'll take the other intangibles all day long.
I don't know that Antonio Brown is a better receiver than Larry Fitzgerald was at his peak. Like, if you're talking today, sure, you're probably going to take someone like Antonio Brown, because despite not having played the last couple of years, he has to be talented in order for him to continue to get shots. But Larry Fitzgerald was a man among boys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if you're comparing overall careers, I think it has to go to Larry hands down. It's not even a question. But if you
I'm just more so focusing on the personality and the diva thing. I mean,
sure,
I don't think enough gets talked about with Larry Fitzgerald and his just demeanor and his just his person, his himself, like just as a human being. I think he's one of the best men that we have in this league and one of the best role models.
That I agree with completely.
We talked about on one of the other shows about like what's the best intangible availability, and I feel like that's kind of goes with the whole Larry Fitzgerald thing as well, because the guy's had a crazy amount of games with a reception consecutively, and AB personality wise can't keep himself on the field. So it just goes to show you, when you have guys that have this amazing God-given talent like both of them have, just what different directions you can go with. All right, second game on the list we have for this week is going to be Paul's game, and that is the Browns versus the Bengals. I know I was kind of surprised, but I kind of talked Paul into covering this one. So the Browns came out over top 37-34. Baker Mayfield having a day, 297 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. Also, Jarvis Landry having himself another throw for 19 yards. Is Jarvis like 100% quarterback rating at this point? Like, I'd have to double check and see. I don't think he's missed a throw this season yet, has he?
Not that I can remember. No, he's been on fire. Like what, 2 for 2, 3 for 3,
something like that for sure. Yeah. Also, Rashad Higgins. Just want to mention that 6 receptions, 110 yards. I did not come up with any touchdowns for this one, but him and Baker Mayfield continue to develop some chemistry there. OBJ is definitely going to be out for the year. Kind of a fluke play, and towards the beginning of the game, he was coming back to make a tackle and kind of like hopped up over a crowd of guys. And I don't know if the hopping motion was because of the injury or if that is what caused the injury, but it was kind of a weird play. Joe Burrow had another game, 406 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. And Tyler Boyd, 11 receptions, 101 yards, receiving 9.2 yards per reception average and a touchdown. The Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals went toe for toe in Ohio's Queen City Sunday. Baker Mayfield's fifth touchdown pass lifted Cleveland over their rival 37-34 with 11 seconds remaining. Cleveland's offense had gotten the ball back with just 1:06 remaining after Cincinnati scored the go-ahead touchdown. So I want to not give out too much more for takeaway for there from Paul. So go ahead, Paul, take her away.
So obviously this was a really, really fun game to watch. There was a lot of back and forth. I think that both quarterbacks, especially Baker Mayfield, needed this game because he just has not been very good this year. His commercials off the chart, phenomenal. Love the commercials, but his play on the field kind of suspect. I'm very curious to see what he's going to end up doing over the next couple of years and see if Cleveland ends up keeping him and paying him, or if they end up letting him go. I think that this could be a turning point game as well, because that throw with 11 seconds left in the end zone for the go-ahead touchdown, that was amazing. Great throw, better catch. One thing that stood out for me was Joe Burrow, in addition to the one interception, had at least two that I can remember that were dropped, and he also had 3 fumbles. So sure, he threw the ball 406 yards, 3 touchdowns, but he's a rookie, but he's really got to start to focus on the little things there, and that I'm sure that he's not going to have that great of a first year. I mean, AJ Green is probable number 1 wide receiver, has been out more than he's been in, as has been the case the last few years. Cincinnati, they need some weapons around him. Once he gets some weapons, because I mean, you saw at LSU what he can do when he's surrounded by talent. That was something else. And this is coming from a Bama fan, so Joe, you suck. But yeah, I think that it'll be fun to watch him mature a little bit. I definitely think that Joe Burrow is going to be better than Baker Mayfield for a career, but Baker got the last laugh in this one. Ralph, what do you think?
I thought it was fun to watch. The back and forth of it all was really, really entertaining. I think this division, I mean, kind of the exact opposite of where the NFC East is right now. I mean, you look at Cleveland, they're playing well. They're fun to watch. The Bengals, they have some upside, and you can see where they're trending in the right direction under Stefanski and Joe Burrow. And then, of course, you have the perennials in Baltimore and Pittsburgh. I mean, that division, if you start really looking at them, I mean, that is one tough division. So we'll see if Baker sticks around with the Browns and see if they keep him around. But what's the alternative? What are you going to do? Trade for Andy Dalton or sign him later? I mean, there's really not a lot of there's a pretty big drop off from Baker to, say, somebody that's available out there, sans Cap and Tyrod Taylor and guys like that. I mean, perennial journeyman, I guess. But man, it was fun. I mean, Burrow is just slinging the ball. Tyler Boyd, just another great game. I mean, the kid, he's there. He's always in the mix. He's always available. I really like that guy as a wide receiver. I think he's underrated. I don't think people talk about him enough. I think he really started to show his abilities last year, and this year he obviously is continuing to expand upon that. But from a divisional perspective, I think that's my biggest takeaway from this, is that the AFC North is just really fun to watch. Brandon?
It's one of the things I was thinking about while you were saying that is I think with them, Baker Mayfield has a bit of that kind of like Ryan Fitzpatrick sort of deal, where I feel like his personality does fit well with the Browns. I've watched quite a bit of that Building the Browns series that they've had for the last couple of years. And it does seem like he gels pretty well with the guys in the locker room, and that he gets along pretty well with everybody, regardless of what all the media scrutiny is said kind of along the way. I'm happy with them this year. My question, I think, for you guys is really, is this what you guys expected them to be more last year? Minus, obviously, the foibles they ended up having with their head coach. But I didn't really expect Kevin Stefanski to be able to be the guy that pulls this together in any way, shape, or form. But I did kind of halfway wonder if last year they could have found some magic. And so to me, it was almost like happenstance that this ended up happening. They were just as likely to be as terrible again as they ended up actually finding something. Like, do you think it was Stefanski that pulled it together? Do you think it was the accumulation of now having that extra year together? Do you think it was banding the locker room together against the force of their previous coach and now they're a united front? What do you guys think it was that contributed towards the Browns being what they are now?
I think it was kind of a mix of everything. One thing low key, I think that's going to help out is not having someone specifically in the locker room anymore. I think that OBJ, very talented, but
they forced a lot to him.
Yeah, and I mean they kind of had to, because when they didn't, he complained about it. So I think that the Browns can actually have more success without him than with him. I think Jarvis Landry is a great presence in the receiver room. He's not the player that he once was, but I think he's the leader that he's always been. And I think that having some people to help coach up, I think that he's invaluable that way. So I really think that part of the problem might have been solved by just OBJing and doing something stupid and not breaking his leg, but, tearing his ACL. So I don't know. I'm very interested to see what happens. I think the coaching change was a must, obviously. I was really surprised they didn't go with McCarthy, because McCarthy had, not this time, but the last time, seemed to have the inside track on that job, and then just didn't. But sure, they can maybe make the playoffs. They're going to be a wild card. They're not winning this division. They're a solid third place in the division, but they could still get like the third wild card.
What about for you, Ralph? What do you think it was that turned the team around?
I think it's a combination of everything you said, but I expected them to be this last year. I really did. I mean, I can't agree with you more. I mean, you really thought that Baker was going to step up and the team was going to step up and they were going to just take that next step forward, that next progression into a contender. And they didn't. And obviously, we know where that got them, and it got Freddie Kitchens fired and brought in Stefanski, and here we are now. I mean, I want to say that Baker's the answer there, but again, you just don't know. I mean, because he's got games where he looks absolutely on fire, can't make a wrong play, and then there's other games where you're just like, what are you doing? Where are you throwing that to? And the team around him, the same thing. I mean, they just have these mind farts that just, that come back to burn them. Brown's gonna Browns kind of thing. But I don't know. Like I said, man, this division is shaping up to be a very entertaining one, and I'm looking forward to watching this, stretch run down towards the end of the season and see who's going to win and who's going to be a wild card. I mean, it's pretty exciting. I mean, just football in general and the shift, the power shift among the different divisions. And, I remember back in the day watching, the Green Bay Packers. Paul, obviously you could speak to this probably better than me, but I mean, Green Bay, when I was growing up, was like the trash, like they had really, really lean years. Then they signed Reggie White, and obviously everybody knows the story from there. They go on to win Super Bowl and, then win another one with Rodgers. But, just the shift in that paradigm shift of powerhouse football, and, what division is really kind of taking the lead, and who's up, who's down, and just watching that shift. I mean, obviously we're seeing that this year with the Patriots and no Tom Brady, and then you get Cam Newton, and you just see that gradual shift that could eventually snowball into, maybe the Patriots don't win again for another 20 years. God, I hope so. But it's just fun to watch. But Brandon, to answer your question, I really think it's just a combination of everything: coaching, personnel, Baker taking another step forward. And that's my thoughts on it.
And Paul,
and just to clear this up, the best division, you're wrong. It's pronounced NFC West.
Well, I'm not saying that the AFC North is the best division. I'm saying that they are a very competitive division, and you look at that top to bottom, and that's what I'm saying is exciting
It's
about
not
it.
the NFC East.
West is awesome.
But yeah, I know one of the other things I wanted to mention is how, and Paul, I want to make sure you get your final thought in here, so make sure you get that in there as well if you had one. But one of the things I also wanted to say, how upset do you think Johnny Manziel is right now? Do you think he sees what happens with Baker, and like every time Baker Mayfield has a good game, he's just like somewhere having a sob fit?
Why would he be having a sob fit?
He's a rich sobbing boy.
Well, he was playing in the Canadian Football League the last I saw, and he didn't even finish the season.
Yeah,
that's because he maneuvered his way out of there, then got into the AAF, right? AAC, whatever that league was called. That was out for like 4 weeks. Got his way in there, and then the league folds on him. So I don't think I don't know, Johnny Manziel.
I just think
what can you say about Johnny Manziel?
He and Baker have a very similar personality wise, and also as far as like intangibles wise, I kind of feel like they're almost the same guy. And also where you kind of wish they would be a little bit more, how do I want to say this? Learned in their NFL playbook, if you will. So I don't know.
I guess you can kind of bring that up, but at least at this point, Baker hasn't knowingly turned to addiction, and that's kind of what happened to Johnny Manziel. I think he had a little too much success, a little too young, and wasn't mature enough to handle it. And Baker, at least at this point, it doesn't seem has gone that same direction. So to me, that's really the only difference. I think that if Johnny Manziel would have been able to have been sober and continue to develop, that he and Baker are probably pretty much the same guy. And to me, that just speaks to the fact that Baker most of the time isn't that great of a quarterback.
Yeah, but I also think that Manziel's had multiple chances and can't pull his head out of his butt, but that's just me.
No, I agree. I'm just saying I think that's because more so he's addicted than because he's a bad football player.
I think you just need to stop that word halfway through. He's a dick. That's where you need to stop.
You're a dick.
So, all right. Next game up is Ralph's game. And I have to say that I'm the most shocked. He picked the Eagles game. The Eagles won 22-21. I'm not going to go too much into this really, other than to say, I thought, Ralph, you went to bed. I thought halfway through the game. You texted us like, I'm done with this shit. I'm out. So I thought that was it. I didn't think you were going to end up covering this game, but you said you had something you wanted to say about it, so here we are.
Well, I will admit that I did turn this off, and
loser.
The point in which I turned it off is when they allowed a white quarterback to run 80 yards on them, and then have two defensive backs stop running at the 50-yard line to try to stop him, where he then proceeds to get tackled by the air. Do I have to go on? Like, what does that not piss anybody else off? I mean, the guy's running. I mean, granted, I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you did, but those stats of him running and the miles per hour that he hit were insane. There was no way. Did he
get faster than DK Metcalf? I think he got faster than DK Metcalf was chasing down Buddha on that play.
Well, that's because his big head started pulling him forward too fast. I think that's about the time he hit that 22-mile-an-hour mark. But yeah, man, I turned it off. I just got so angry because, not that we're any better, but you've got a 1-4-1 team playing a 1-5 team. And in my mind, the Eagles are better than their record. They just are. They just haven't played very well. They've been snake bitten by injuries, and I really felt like this was a game where they could have a statement. And
ladies and gentlemen, this is what it sounds like to be a true fan in denial.
You can say denial, but I'm also looking at, again, nothing's won on paper, but on paper, the level of talent on this team far outweighs what the Giants have. Can we agree on that? I was encouraged early because Deshaun Jackson was back. They involved him early. He looked good.
That first drive, they looked great. And Deshaun had 3 or 4 catches in that drive, if I remember correctly.
First two plays.
Yeah, and I really was like, man, they're cooking again. It's nice to see what Carson looks like with a real wide receiver for a change.
Yeah, and then Deshaun ended up getting hurt. I felt so bad for y'all when that happened. I really did.
That's
one of the
surprised.
things I wanted to ask you guys. Sorry, go ahead, Brandon.
Oh, I don't mean to talk over you. I'm sorry. I was just saying, I really, when he came up lame, I was not surprised at all. And that's the one thing with him, man. Like, it just flashes of brilliance. Probably before you had Tyreek Hill, I think one of the fastest guys I've ever seen on a football field, but he just can't stay healthy.
I think there's a mix of can't stay healthy, and there's a lot of stupid in his head too. He's the one who tried to dive in from the 5-yard line and then didn't get into the end zone. That was actually the second time he did it. He did it in the Army-Navy All-American high school football game. And then didn't he have one of the times where he dropped the ball before he got into the end zone too?
Yeah, like, there's a lot of the Meadowlands.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stupid in Deshaun.
Say the Miracle of the Meadowlands. I don't remember which one it was. He dropped the kickoff, and then after that he picked it up and then took it back to score.
Yeah, that was the Miracle of the Meadowlands. Yep. But one of the since we're talking about him, word came out after the game that he volunteered to get put in for that, to take that punt return, and then of course he ends up getting hurt on it, and he's out 6 to 8 weeks because of it. And I'm thinking in my head, you just got back from injury, you're prone to injury, and you've got guys on the team like Ward and these younger guys that get paid a hell of a lot less than you do to go out there and do these jobs. I mean, you're not gonna hit a home run every time. I don't understand the logic in putting Deshaun Jackson back there, fresh off an injury. It just doesn't make sense to me.
It was extra stupid before this weekend happened, where we actually had some guys break off some kick returns. But previous to this weekend, that had not happened as of yet in this season. So there was not much for you to think that you were going to capitalize on momentum or whatever to make that happen. I agree. I don't think that was a good idea to have him do that. There's so many other guys on this team that could have taken that one play.
And that's the thing. There's so many other, contributors that could have taken it. But he's hurt. He's out 6 to 8 weeks again, and I don't think you're going to see him. If he comes back, it's not going to be for any meaning or I don't know. I think his time as an Eagle will probably be up soon. But moving on to some other interesting points from that game. Young guys continue to show out. I mean, Wentz, he seems to have a connection with Ward. I like it. I like how he trusts him. It seems like he is more willing to let the ball go on time, let it go in rhythm, and he trusts that Ward's going to be there. I'm really happy with Greg Ward. I think he's got some talent. Once again, we saw Fulgham have a nice catch down the sideline. Even Hightower finally made a catch without having it go through his hands. But can we just talk 1 second about Boston Scott and how much he reminds me, and should remind everybody, of Darren Sproles, and how quick and little and just flashy he is. If they can involve him more in the game plan, I think he gives them a bit of a kind of, a slash kind of player. But I'm assuming both of you guys watched this game, but did you notice, or did either of you pick up on how many times somebody's clicking the spin button with this guy when he's running the ball?
Yeah,
was not paying attention to that.
It just seems like every handoff he's spinning.
I like watching him play a lot. He's definitely a lot of fun. I mean, we've had so many guys that I thought would be great at running back that we've picked up. Like, I always thought Donald Pumphrey was going to end up being something. And then he ended up just completely washing out, I believe, of the entire league. And then you had guys like Clement and Wendell Smallwood and just different guys that had flashes of brilliance with this team. But it really seems like Boston Scott's been the one guy that's been able to consistently put together those Sproles-esque plays, which is what I feel like they've been trying to find somebody to do since he got hurt.
Switching sides of the football here, this makes the first time since 1959 that the Eagles have given up 20-plus points in their first 7 games to start the season. Not the defense we're used to watching, Brandon.
I'm really glad that you circled back on this point because of the first thing that you had mentioned about the defense, and I I can't get angry about what I see happen because of the fact that every single time I'm just watching ours get burned up the middle. They just attack us in the middle of the field with our linebackers and our safeties, and they can't do anything to stop anything. And that's why the Daniel Jones thing happened, is because they have nobody up the middle of the field of that defense to make a play. And that's, I feel like, the biggest problem. Like, they have your defensive line is good, and you have Slay on the outside. Coleman's great for nothing other than to get us penalties this year in big moments, it seems.
Too many penalties.
I thought he was going to be okay, man, and he's been, to me, not been great and done nothing but penalize this team in important spots. But that's where I watch every single Sunday, or every single time this team plays. I watch the opposite team's offense just attack us up the middle, and we can't do anything to stop it.
Well, I thought Gallman was going to try to win the game by himself.
Yeah, well, that's why I said, man, I can't get frustrated on these individual things, because to me, until they figure out something with that, and I don't think it's going to happen this year. I don't think they're going to trade for a linebacker. I don't think they're going to trade for anything to make that better. I think they're just resolved to waiting for someone to either step up or just waiting to fix it in the draft again. We drafted 3 linebackers this last year, and none of them have done anything in the season thus far, and 2 of them I know for a fact are playing, getting actual minutes in this defense. So I just don't get it, man. I just want somebody to step up and make a play in that linebacker room. I know Nate Jerry had 2 okay plays, but he had Daniel Jones dead to rights. And he just completely whiffed on it. How many missed tackles did we see that defense make? Like, repeatedly, you would see 2 to 3 to 4 guys miss tackles in a given play. And it's just like, dude, if I was my old self, my younger self watching the Eagles play, I wouldn't own a TV right now because it would be in pieces.
Yeah. It is frustrating to watch, and you're watching Nate Gary just completely whiff on that tackle. But just as much as they're terrible on defense, they're terrible on 3rd and 4th and short and 2-point conversion plays. And this is an area where you would think that with the offensive mind of Doug Peterson, that they would have plays that would actually, work. I mean, everything they do is just, it's stuffed at the line. The defense is breaking through and hitting them 3 yards in the backfield.
So this is the week where we go from saying, well, the Eagles are going to eagle, to going back and complaining about everything that goes wrong during the game.
Because you start to see them do certain things well. Like in that first drive of the game, you see what's possible with this team when they actually do things the right way. But I was just going to ask you, Paul, before you, Paul, and say smart ass things, which I love, so don't stop, you played football, so how much of that is actually, like, is that to the point where they run out of scripted plays? Like, I mean, are they going to script the first drive? Obviously, maybe the first drive out of the second half. But other than that, I mean, how much of that are they really going to get prepped ahead of time?
It really depends on the coach. There's some coaches that'll say that they're going to script the first 15 or 20 plays of the game, and they run those no matter what. And then there's others that are going to say they're going to do 1 or 2 drives, and then there's good coaches who learn how to adapt. I think that I think that coaching is something in the league that is very underrated, in the point that there are so few coaches that can adjust in game. Coaching really makes up just a few aspects. It's developing a team, it's drafting and putting together a team, and then it's coaching in the games. And one thing that Mike McCarthy was great at was coaching up players, because most of the players on the teams that they drafted, aside from like Clay Matthews and a couple of the high round picks, you didn't hear that much about. But then they came in the league and turned out to be pretty good. Jordy Nelson, example right there. Devontae Adams, the first year or 2 that Devontae Adams was on the team, he was not the Devontae Adams of now. But so few coaches are good at making in-game adjustments. And that's where you separate the coaches that are going to be journeyman quarterbacks and Ryan Fitzpatrick essentially of coaching, and where you get the Belichicks, the Pete Carrolls, the Andy Reeds, where they're always going to have a home, and it's going to take a lot for them to get something to move on from. The one thing that I did want to bring up about Daniel Jones, I think that most of us can agree that Jamarcus Russell, probably the biggest bust that we've ever seen, partially because he went number 1 overall. Other than that, then you got to start including like Ryan Leaf and some other ones. But in Jamarcus Russell's first 20 starts, he threw 14 interceptions, had 16 fumbles. In Danny Dimes' first 20 starts, he's thrown 16 interceptions and had 23 fumbles. So maybe, drafting someone who was projected to be a tight end to be a quarterback wasn't the best idea.
But they're not even close to assuming that that's been a wrong decision at this point.
I think that the Giants don't feel that it's been a wrong decision.
That's what I mean.
Point.
The Giants as an organization, it's not like they're coming out and having second thoughts about like, oh man, maybe we need to get somebody else in here. Like, not at all.
Who else are you going to get? Because, last year you could have said the exact same thing about the Bears with Mitch Trubisky, and then they find a way to trade for Nick Foles. Still give Mitch Trubisky, for whatever reason, the first 3 starts. And the Bears are where they are, and the Giants are where they are.
Yeah, but look at the Cardinals. The Cardinals went all in on Josh Rosen, realized that was not where they needed to be, and went all in all over again and went and got themselves a much better option with Kyler Murray.
Right, but they also had Josh Rosen was wasn't he like 12th overall? And then they went over, maybe not over, but they had the number 1 overall pick. Of course, you take if you pass up talent in the NFL,
to have 20-something fumbles is my point. They were like, this shit's done. Like, we need to move on. Like, he didn't even have the chance to get that many interceptions thrown. How many games did Rosen even start? It's like, and they were like, all right, we're done with this.
Okay, but they still ended up having a worse record than what the Giants have had. You're not going to find Kyler Murray outside of a number 1 or number 2 overall pick, and the Giants weren't there last year.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying that the Cardinals as an organization recognized that what they recognized that what they went all in to get something, and then it didn't work out, and they went and did it again. Where the Giants go and do it, it's still kind of not working out, but they're just like, yeah, no, we're good. And I think that just kind of speaks to them as an organization. Like, I just saw before we started the show tonight that the CEO of the Giants what's his name? Was it Gettleman or Dave Gettleman?
The GM Gettleman.
Yeah, that he's on the hot seat now.
Okay, but my point is, it's a lot easier to have the clairvoyance of, hey, maybe we should move on when you have the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean you have to necessarily use it on Kyler Murray when there's other guys in that draft that are monsters as well.
But when you have someone who looks like a generational talent, the way that Murray looked at Oklahoma,
he looked like a generational.
lot easier.
So some people would argue he looked like a generational baseball player, but yeah, I know, I feel you.
I'm just saying there's a much bigger difference between. I don't know who the Giants picked with their first pick, but I know they didn't pick first or second, like first overall. Whereas the Cardinals didn't pick first overall. Because Daniel Jones was like the 3rd or 4th like overall pick, and then Josh Rosen was like the 12th, and then the Cardinals wound up with the 1st. So of course you're going to look at quarterbacks if you have the number 1 overall pick and you don't have an Aaron Rodgers there. I just think
Rosen was 10th overall.
10th overall.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was the 4th quarterback selected that year.
I think that it was a dumb move, but I think that you're giving the Cardinals too much praise for moving on from a mediocre quarterback when it's easier to do it when you have the number 1 overall pick.
I'm not trying to give either one very much praise because both organizations could be in a
you're
way
praising
better place.
You're praising the Cardinals. I can tell. I know. You know damn right.
As you're talking, I'm like, damn, he is hammering this way more than what I had expected. I'm literally just trying to say, man, the Giants suck even more than the Cardinals suck. And he's like, no, man, they could have made much better decisions. And I'm like, okay.
Well, not
Wrong
to break
horse
up
to
this
beat.
love fest,
Sorry,
fellas.
go ahead.
But
Ralph, shut up. You're not involved in this. Now listen here, Brandon.
let me just the last couple of things on this Eagles game, and then I'll let you guys bicker it out. The last couple of things I wanted to talk about were just Wentz continues to get hit. He continues to be, too exposed by that offensive line. We talk about flashes of greatness, and he's a microcosm of the team when it comes to that, because you've got throws where he misses a wide open guy, and then you get a throw like the game-winning touchdown that is just absolutely mind-boggling, and really just I still don't know how he made that throw. But he just continues to get hit, and it's a matter of time before they expose him too much and he gets hurt, and then we're back to Carson can't stay healthy and all that stuff. So all right, it's Cowboys week. We might get Rager back. We might get Jason Peters back. I don't think I want Jason Peters back at this point, because I think Jordan Mailata has really done a serviceable job at left tackle. And I think it's now his time to take that role and run with it and grow in it and become a diamond in the rough. I mean, he was a 7th round pick and could be your next left tackle for the next 10, 12 years even. So I'm excited about Cowboys week, because as we'll talk about in a little bit, the Cowboys are not playing very well. And I just look forward to whipping their ass.
One thing I was going to say is I think that you would maybe have, if you count on one hand, the amount of dropbacks that Carson Wentz had, that you could count to 3 before he was pressured. Like the vast majority of the time, I could not count past 3 before he was having to run out of the pocket. Like,
I'm surprised you can count to 3.
Yeah. Like, I don't even know if that would be something to me that you really have that much time as a quarterback, like to even have a play develop in that amount of time. So that to me has been, I think, going to be the absolute key factor for them, is just getting this offensive line to be able to block moving forward. And I'm super excited for Dallas week as well. I'm also excited because, man, I love hearing Skip Bayless in pain. And this week, hearing him talk about he doesn't think the Cowboys are going to win another game, it just feeds my soul. It just makes me so happy. So if the Birds are bad and the Cowboys are worse, life is good. So I don't know about you guys, but that's at least how I feel.
Oh, your tears taste so good.
They sustain me. So the last pick of the week is the Steelers versus the Titans. The Steelers took it at 27-24. This was a game that I thought was going to get out of hand early. The Steelers got out to a quick lead, and if it wasn't for the momentum shift that the Titans had towards the end of the third quarter, I really thought that the Steelers were just going to absolutely run away with this. So the streak of the fourth quarter came to an end for the Tennessee Titans in their 27-24 loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Titans trailed by 27-7 at one point in the third quarter, but the Titans made it close, pulling to within 3 points in the fourth quarter. With just 2 minutes left, the Titans started at the 20-yard line after an interception by Amani Hooker in the end zone, resulting in a touchback. Tannehill drove the Titans to the 28-yard line to set up a 45-yard field goal attempt by Steven Gostkowski that was off the mark with 19 seconds left in the game. I really thought that it was going to end up being a sealed deal. A.J. Brown had a beautiful catch to get him real super close, much closer than I thought they were going to end up being for that final kick. And, man, Gostkowski just can't catch a break, it seems, this year. What did you guys think about the game, Paul?
It was better than I thought it was going to be. Steelers better than I thought that they were going to be. It was not fun to watch because you know how much I love Ben Roethlisberger. I think his face at the end of the game as they missed the field goal said pretty much everything you needed to say. I looking forward to it. I think that these two are going to be duking it out in the playoffs at some point. The one thing that if I were a Titans fan, I'd be a little worried about is Derrick Henry. he's kind of feast or famine. He either gets 200 yards or he's held under 100. And when you have a defense that knows how to tackle like the Steelers, he's not doing that great. I think he was like 20 for 75 this week. So a little worried about that. They played a great second half, and I think that all the Bears fans out there know how it feels to have a field goal kicking team that isn't reliable. So what about you, Ralph?
I've never seen Derrick Henry get lit up like he did on that one play at the goal line. I don't know the outcome of it, but the linebacker from Pittsburgh that just stone cold crushed him. Did he end up getting a concussion on that play? Because he hit him like it was two huge boys going head to head, and just he stopped him dead in his tracks. I've just never seen Henry tackled that way. Do you guys know what happened?
No, I had no clue here.
No, I didn't see specifically about the injury. No.
Okay. But there were 2 or 3 plays, but that one in particular, that linebacker just came up and just stuffed him right at the goal line.
It's interesting that I really felt like early the Steelers did a really good job of keeping Derrick Henry off of the field. He didn't really have a significant play until I think 5 or 6 minutes into the second quarter. So it's early. The Steelers just kept their offense on the field. And then late, there was just so many things, like their defense did not show up until like 75% of the way through the game. And then all of a sudden it was like they could do no wrong, and they started actually picking off Ben Roethlisberger. But previous to that, the Steelers could do no wrong in the first half of that game. So it was like I love momentum shifts and just really seeing how those things change. And I really thought the Titans were going to pull off yet another fourth quarter comeback. And this team is just so much fun to watch. We talked before about, like, for me, the Cubs really won me over the year that they won the World Series. And I know I've watched a ton of Cubs games since then. And for me, the Titans, man, since they have started to become a good team, they've been one of the teams that I never, like a franchise, I never really had any feeling towards whatsoever. But now it's like, if you want to watch smash mouth football, they're great to tune in and watch their games.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go over to a defensive side. Let me ask you guys, Paul, who'd you rather have on your team right now, JJ or TJ Watt?
Aaron Donald.
That wasn't the choice.
That's your opinion.
I'm being serious. I really think TJ Watt gets overshadowed by his brother, and I think he's. I don't know, pound for pound, I think he's probably, I don't want to say better than, but he's damn close.
I really like that TJ is like very heady with his play. Like, sorry, Paul, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I like that he goes for the ball first when he goes for the sack. Like, you see him actively trying to knock the ball out before he sacks the quarterback. Go ahead, Paul.
I think JJ's been very injury prone the last few years, because I think that he has really been, I'm just waiting for Aaron Donald to have the same thing, because it seems like they just go balls to the wall in the offseason, just put together the biggest piece of muscle that their defensive coordinator can use. And then their defensive coordinator goes out and tells them what to do, and they do it without fail. If you want to go like right now, this season, sure, TJ's probably better. JJ's probably past his prime because of all the injuries, but JJ was 2-time defensive player of the year, not 3, right? He got 2.
I think so.
Okay. Yeah. So TJ's amazing. He's also on a very well coached defensive team. There were some years where JJ was the only thing that the Titans had.
That's been most years, but yeah.
Titans, Texans. You know what I mean?
Well, speaking of the Titans, man, the Titans have just had very little in the pass rush game that seemed to start that game. And they found it late. They were able to finally start to get in there and get some breakups, but they just started that game so slow. They really got to make sure that they can keep things. They need to get themselves out of having to make these fourth quarter comebacks. It's awesome. It's exciting. It's a lot of fun, but they need to not put themselves in that situation to begin with.
I definitely agree with that, but how much of that is they gave a lot of money to Jadeveon Clowney, and I mean, no one else wanted to pay him.
He's been invisible, but it's a 1-year deal at least. I mean, they can get out of it after this, so that part's good. But I mean, they just wanted a pass rush, and we're just rolling the dice because didn't Jarrell Casey go to the Broncos?
I think you're right on that. I didn't know his deal was only a 1-year deal, and I think I forgot that. But I mean, if you're Jadeveon Clowney, how are you in a contract year then going to let yourself play like this? I mean, he wanted to be paid what, like 18 a year or something, and right now he's not looking like he's worth 18 over 3.
Well, in the beginning of the episode, we were talking about guys that will disappear and show back up again, and that to me has always been Clowney. I didn't want the Eagles to touch him with a 10-foot pole. I was so happy they didn't do that.
That's fair.
All right, so moving on here, I think that'll wrap up our in-depth portion. We have a couple topics I want to kind of touch on, and then we're going to hit our power rankings and predictions. That's going to be Antonio Brown signing with the Bucs. I know we had talked about this a little bit. We were kind of sending each other texts back and forth, wondering where he was going to go. It seemed like late it was between Seattle and between the Bucs, and we were kind of going back and forth as to who we thought he was going to go with. Ultimately, we ended up signing with the Bucs. What was the deal, Paul? Where did it end up going?
So the deal it's the baseline contract's $1 million, but it has roster bonuses built in. So if they feel that he's being detrimental to the team, they can get out of that contract super cheap. It has another $1.5 million in bonuses. Half of that, $750, is if they win the Super Bowl, and the other half is 3 incentive bonuses for another $750 total. So it's a cheap contract to try to get someone who's very talented.
And he's supposed to start next week, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that AB? I mean, obviously the guy's talented. We got to see what he did in that one game with the Patriots. Not last year, right? The year before?
I think it was last year.
Was it last year? God, it feels like 2 years ago.
That's because he did so much stuff.
I know the AB saga has just been absolutely a crazy train. So yeah, man. Do you guys think, we'll start with Paul, what difference is Antonio Brown going to make for you to this offense? Do you think that that's going to be, with Mike Evans not being able to stay healthy, Godwin just coming back off of injury, but already making a difference? Where do you think AB is going to take this team?
So that, to me, it really depends on who ends up injured, because I think that Antonio Brown is somewhere between a luxury and stupidity when it comes to signing to your team. Obviously super talented, but he hasn't done much of anything in the last year aside from have court cases. So I'm interested to see where he comes back. I think it's pretty clear to say the Bucs are all in on this season when you get Gronk and you get Tom Brady and now Antonio Brown and Leonard Fournette. I mean, you're going all in on a bunch of 1-year contracts right there. I know that all of them are 1-year deals, but they're all in on going for the Super Bowl this season. So I think the way they structured the contract was very smart. If they end up flailing around a little bit, then they can get out of it. They're in a division that's not all that great. I mean, you've got the Falcons, who are terrible. You've got the Saints, who it seems like Michael Thomas legitimately is trying to get out of being a Saint, and then they start playing better without him on the field. And then the Panthers. So I think that even if the Bucs lose a couple of games, they can still win the division and still get into the playoffs. But yeah, I think it's a good thing just because their top receivers have been so injured, and because their second tight end, can't remember his name, dude out of Alabama, but they had to sit him because he tore something. I think it was Achilles. So I think that it's a smart sign if he plays with the team, and I think it's a smart way to get rid of him if he starts causing distractions. What about you, Ralph?
Well, I think it's risk versus reward, right? I mean, you outlined his contract there, and you outlined how team friendly it is, and like you said, I mean, if he screws up, well, see you later. And it's not really. I mean, the Patriots gave him $9 million last year for one game, right? I mean, risk versus reward, and then throw another term at you is return on investment. If he somehow comes into play here and can be the Antonio Brown we all remember, then this is going to be looked upon as one of the smartest signings that's ever been, or in at least in recent memory. But at the same time, if he happens to screw up again and they get rid of him, well, they still look smart because they're not getting hurt financially for it. I mean, there's really not much else I think I can say. I mean, does adding Antonio Brown does not hurt your talent. Adding Antonio Brown can hurt your chemistry. Brandon?
I have a secondary question. My secondary question is, do you think that Tom Brady will do a better job of keeping Antonio Brown in line than Jarvis Landry has done of OBJ?
I would say yes, just because look what Tom Brady did with Randy Moss when he went to the Patriots.
Well, I mean, you got a glimpse of it last year in New England. I thought he was going to stick around and kind of prove or disprove that. But then I forget exactly the circumstance. I think something came out, like somehow some texts or something came out, and that was basically the nail in his coffin there in New England. But if he can, if he can stay on, out of trouble and out of the limelight for the wrong reasons, I think Brady can really do a lot to cover up any locker room stuff, if there is any.
Well, we're going to get into power rankings here in a little bit, so I don't want to jump the gun just yet, but just very simply state, did them signing AB adjust your power rankings for this week?
For me, no.
Not me either.
It did for me. Next one we're going to go to is, I want to talk about the Dallas Cowboys a little bit. We were talking a little bit earlier about talking about the Eagles and talking about the Packers, but one of the things that I wanted to mention is talking about the Dallas Cowboys and possibly Mike McCarthy having lost his locker room after just 7 weeks of football. Now, I know we didn't have the preseason, so things might be a little bit different for them, but having this be the earliest that I can remember in recent memory anyway, that a coach seemingly has lost the locker room. I mean, there are multiple reports out of multiple outlets that I have heard over the last week of different sources saying that essentially it's difference between him not getting players ready for games and also just the complete disenfranchisement of the entire team with Mike Nolan, the defensive coordinator, and them kind of wondering, A, why he even has a job, and B, why he's still there. So it's just been interesting to kind of see this entire collapse. I mean, it's been enjoyable for me as an Eagles fan, but it's also just been kind of surprising. I thought it might have been possible with Mike McCarthy. Obviously, I felt like it was probably just a line that they kind of give, like, hey, man, I took a year off. I got into analytics now. I'm trying to be a different coach. You always wonder how much of that is honestly true, because like Paul mentioned earlier, he could have had an option to move into another job sooner and he didn't take it. So did he honestly have that sabbatical and have that time to kind of sit back and have that epiphany, if you will? But now looking at what we've seen here, it seems that he has just completely set himself up for failure with not calling the plays, handing the offense to Kellen Moore, and then having the defense handed over to Mike Nolan, that it just seems like no one cares. Now you have Dak get hurt, you have Andy Dalton get concussed, and now we have pretty much an entire week of people arguing over whether or not the team should have stood up for him and went out there and, busted some heads for the way that Bostic landed that hit. Personally, I kind of agree with the way that everything went down, that they didn't really have time and there really wasn't a place unless you were going to do it later and have it be a cheap shot sort of deal. So I don't know. Because everybody ran over to, in my opinion, to see if Dalton was okay. And by that point, they had already ejected Bostic. And what are you going to do? But I don't know. Which one of you guys want to go first on this one?
Well, I'll take your statement. I don't disagree with you on much, Brandon, but the idea that they didn't have time to stick up for their quarterback, I mean, that to me that's the biggest tell of a team and how they are as a unit behind the scenes and on the field, is how they react and how they support one another. And they had nothing They gave nothing to Andy Dalton on that play. And I'm sorry, but if your quarterback gets hit like that, I don't care who you are. If you're a big 300+ pound O lineman, you can't go up to that guy and at least grab him by the helmet and grab him by the face mask and shake him around. Or, I'm not saying throw punches, but I'm saying get in there and let him know that you're angry with him. I mean, yeah, your focus is on the health and safety of Dalton at that point, but your first reaction should be to go up there and tell that guy that he's an idiot for that hit. I mean, honestly, that guy should be suspended. It's a terrible hit. Just an awful, awful head first play. It's the very thing the NFL is trying to get out of the league. And I mean, you can say boom, boom play. You can say, Andy was sliding, but we all know when a quarterback goes down the slide, you can't hit him. And especially when you're shooting yourself off like a missile at the dude's head. So for me, the telltale sign of the Cowboys, and really it's all you can say, is they are not a team. They're not a unit. They don't stick up for themselves or each other. And they're just going to implode week by week. And like you said, I love to see it, but man, if I'm a Cowboys fan, that's the most disgusting thing to me, is that they don't stick up for one another. Paul?
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that one. For me, I mean, this really brings up the Myles Garrett, Mason Rudolph situation last year. And it was whatever Pouncey brother they have that that decided to go crazy on Myles Garrett. And honestly, I'm on Myles Garrett's side on that, because Mason Rudolph, you can't get up into someone's face repeatedly and expect nothing to happen and then act like you're surprised when something does happen.
I'm glad that you brought that up, by the way, because we talked about that last year and we didn't really have a show going at the time. And you were one of the only people that I know that was like, I'm 100% behind Myles Garrett all the way.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that was just, yeah, it was stupid on what Myles Garrett did last year, but I'm definitely, I support what he did. And this is a different situation where you're putting your head into someone, and I couldn't tell at first if Andy Dalton got knocked out or what happened. I know he got hurt, obviously, but for no one on the Cowboys to do anything, and as much as I can't stand Mike McCarthy, whenever Aaron Rodgers got cheap shotted, there were always people there backing him up when McCarthy was in Green Bay. So this isn't something that you should have to coach. This is something that should be programmed into yourself as a player. If someone goes after the leader of your team, you make them feel bad that they chose to do so. So yeah, I'm right there with you. Cowboys, their season's over unless they trade for some quarterback who does something. Their season's completely over. They're not a team. I don't see anything changing. I can't believe Zeke is having as terrible a time as he has been having. I mean, he's fumbling all over the place. I don't know if he's in his head or what. The Cowboys are not a team at this point. I completely agree with Ralph.
What do you think of the sentiments that people are having that the Cowboys are now tanking for Trevor?
That the Cowboys are tanking for Trevor?
Yeah, there's been talk show hosts all week saying that they're convinced that the Cowboys are, Jerry Jones anyway, is actively tanking for Trevor.
He's not that smart.
One, I agree, he's not that smart. Two, I mean, you can't get below the Jets, who aren't going to win a game this year. And three, Trevor Lawrence just came out and teased that he might play his senior year, which is the smartest thing that kid could do, so he doesn't have to be in a Jets uniform.
If I'm Trevor Lawrence, that's definitely what I'm doing. What about you guys?
I'm pulling an Eli and saying I'm not playing there.
So you would still go into the draft, but you're just saying I'm not playing for you, even if you draft me.
Yes, I think that college football is terrible. I hate the way that the rules are set up so that these kids make hundreds of millions of dollars for their schools and don't get paid anything. So for me, it's not worth the risk of going back for a senior year and having an injury. Like Tua got lucky. Let's face it. He broke his hip and he's back in less than a year. That dude got lucky. But if I'm Trevor Lawrence, I'm coming out and I'm saying, look, I'm not going to be a Jet.
I mean, I can't really say too much more than that. I mean, you look back in history at guys that said I'm not playing there. Eli was Elway one famously too. He wasn't going to play for the Colts, right?
Yeah, have you ever seen the was it from Elway to Marino?
The
30 for 30. It's a great 30
Yeah.
for 30.
It is.
But I mean, you look at it. I don't think it's for a college player to be the number one draft pick. Other than the contract, what's the good part of being number one? You're going to a shitty team.
Yeah,
but I think a lot of those guys have the ego that they're going to be the missing link.
And there's shitty teams, and then there's shitty teams. Like I think there's a big difference between that they don't have anything to protect you, that the actual organization as a whole is broken. Like there are guys that know these things, especially with the Manning family. They knew that they didn't want anything to do with that, and they wanted him to specifically be in a certain place to try to thrive. All right. Well, next thing that we're up to is probably one of my most anticipated moments of the week, guys, because we're going to do the Muffed Punt podcast power rankings through week 7. And the reason why I'm so excited is the first time around, I thought we were all going to have the same 5 picks, and we ended up having almost completely different picks. So this time around, we're going to do it the exact same way we did before as far as the roundtable version. We're going to start from 5 to 1, and we're going to start with Paul.
I think the 5th pick is the hardest one for me. I really, really wanted to put the Packers here, but Tampa is really trending upwards, and they beat the Packers, so I got to go with the Bucks at 5.
For me, I think this is they're all hard except the top 2, I think, at this point. But for me right now, I was struggling between putting Green Bay 5th, but I think I'm going Seattle number 5.
Man, I thought I was going to be the sole one here. I have the Seahawks at number 5. And my main thing is, like I said earlier, with the Seahawks, their defense has got to find a way to get other teams to not put points on the board. They cannot expect to just score every single drive. So they're still amazing. Russ is still Russ, still close to being an MVP contention right now, because obviously if this is the only bad game he has this year, then whatever. But it's still something where I'd say for me, they're not out of the top 5 because of that, but I think they're just right there. So Seahawks at number 5 for me.
I think you could make an argument that the Seahawks are the 3rd best team in the NFC West.
Yeah, so it's right there in itself if they're not even the best team in their division. So who knows? Number 4?
Number 4, I have the Titans here. Losing to a team that's undefeated, I don't think should cause you too much pain, especially when I think the game should have gone into overtime. And with the momentum going Tennessee's way, I think they would have won that game. So I got the Titans at 4.
And here's where I have Tampa Bay, and the Titans didn't make my top 5 this week, and I think it's more so because of how much uptrend the Bucs have, and that loss to Pittsburgh kind of showed a little ding in the armor there. So Tampa's trending up. I had to put them somewhere, but I couldn't put them in my top 3, so they're 4 for me this week.
Number 4 for me is definitely going to be the Packers. I think for me, I was kind of wondering if they were going to stay where they were, if that performance is really as good as I felt. But I still am just going to have a hard time giving up on them this year as far as feeling like they're going to be one of the teams that are going to go far. When everybody gets back and healthy, I think that they're definitely going to be something to look at. So Packers are still going to be number 4 for me on the list.
At number 3, I've got the Steelers, undefeated here. But I don't think they're as good as my top 2.
For the 3rd pick here, might shock you guys a little bit. Maybe this is a little bit of a reach, but I think the Ravens at 3 are I know they're coming off of a bye. They didn't play last week, but until they prove me otherwise, I think they're one of the best teams right now. So I got Baltimore 3.
Number 3 for me is going to be the Bucs. I think one of the things I didn't get a chance to mention earlier, so I'll just mention it here. Devin White. Good Lord, is that guy scary. I think I would not, that commercial that they have with, who's the guy from the Steelers?
James Harrison.
Thank you, James Harrison.
Yeah, that one. That's funny.
Yeah, the James Harrison commercial is great. But it was kind of like that for me. Watching him one-hand tackle guys is just, like, that dude is monstrous. So just Devin White alone, Bucs at 3 for me on this week.
At number 2, this is where I've got the Ravens because the only team that they seem to lose to still is the Chiefs. So until they get another loss, I'm going to keep them here.
And this is so I thought I was reaching with Baltimore at 3, but I'm going Pittsburgh. Paul, I know you're not a fan there, but they haven't shown me anything that would put them anything lower than 2 for me at this point. They're playing well. They're 6-0. They beat. I don't want to say handily. But the first part of that game, they were putting it on Tennessee pretty good. So I like what I see out of them. I think they're playing really well. Will it continue? I don't know, but Pittsburgh number 2.
I think it's a good pick.
It's funny to me that when I make these picks, sometimes I think they're going to go so differently. But I would definitely say number 2 for me is Pittsburgh, 6-0, same thing. They look like a legit team on both sides of the ball. So I feel like any given Sunday that they show up, they could definitely do something for sure. Really quick, the Titans and the Ravens, I think they would be like 6 and 7 for me, man. Like I was having so much debate as to who I would kick out to put one of them in here, but I'm just kind of down on both of those teams right now. So that's just why they didn't make my top 5. Go ahead.
Gotcha. Number 1 for me. I got to go with the Eagles here. I think they turned a corner. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, I gotta go with the Chiefs until they start to look vulnerable more often. They're so fast on offense. The Cardinals actually. I was talking to a friend. The Cardinals remind me a little bit of the Chiefs just because there's so much speed there. Like if I'm a team playing in a conference championship or a Super Bowl, I don't want to see the Chiefs. I don't want to see the Seahawks. I don't want to see the Cardinals. Anybody else, and I think I've got a pretty good chance. But wow, those 3 teams are something special. So I gotta leave the Chiefs at number 1 until I see them look human more often.
Really quick before Ralph goes, I was just thinking this week how much harder this is going to get as the weeks go on to make our picks, because man, especially playoff time. It's going to be, some of these are going to be real toss-ups, man. There's going to be some dark horses in here that can really mess up our weekends. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ralph.
So, well, obviously, number 1 for me is got to be KC. And I think Paul said it best, until somebody can prove to me otherwise, until a team can show any kind of vulnerability in the Chiefs, it's hard to pick against them right now for number 1. I mean, they were doing it in all 3 phases last week. I mean, special teams, offense, defense. They're just, man, they're a fun team to watch. So KC until somebody proves elsewise.
Same for me all the way around. So I'll just say ditto, just in sakes of saving some time here. All right, so we're going to move on to our predictions section for Week 8 here for the Muffed Punt podcast. NFL action starting off basically tomorrow. It'll be today when you guys are hearing the show, if you listen to it when it first comes out. We have Thursday night action. I don't know, guys. America might be losing again. It's the Falcons versus the Panthers. What do you guys think?
Whoa. Hold on. Who did what last weekend? Because I legitimately have no idea who did well.
The Eagles won.
Yeah.
It was Thursday night football.
No. Just picks overall.
Oh.
I think I had a rough week.
I have not tallied everything out yet. I will have it for next week, I promise. So we'll have everything squared away. We'll do the whole rundown, the whole 9. I had everything last week, but I didn't have time this week, so I will have it next week, I promise.
All right. How dare you have a life outside of a fun on-the-side podcast that we do together? It's ridiculous. All right. Who is it? Falcons and who? I'm sorry?
Carolina.
Falcons and Panthers.
Oh, I got to go with the Panthers on this one. America might lose, but Teddy Bridgewater won't.
Carolina for me as well.
Yeah, I think Carolina did pretty good keeping up with the Saints last week. I do think that they had a little extra incentive in that game, obviously with Teddy B playing his old team, but I'll go with Carolina this time. Next game we have is the Vikings versus the Packers. Uh-oh. Paul, who you taking?
Packers. This is going to be kind of the same thing, but opposite with the Chiefs until the Vikings show me something. They are who we know they are. So I'm going to go with the Packers here.
Same for me, Packers.
Paul, what do you think are the chances that there could be an upset?
I think if there's an upset and you just jinxed it, that I'm going to fly to New Jersey and punch you square in the mouth.
Well, I'm still going to pick the Packers anyway, but it's always fun when the Vikings play the Packers. You never know. There's always, but without fans in the stands, it's not going to be the same as it usually is. But the Vikings playing the Packers are usually a fun Sunday.
Yeah, it's usually a good game. I just think that I think that we're past the peak of where Mike Zimmer is going to do well as a coach there. I think it's time to switch it up. I think that most coaches shouldn't stay in one location more than like 5 to 7 years at the max, because things just start to go downhill. They don't have a good quarterback. They don't have a decent quarterback. They have Kirk Cousins. So, I mean, until you get someone better than Kirk Cousins there, that team's not going to do anything.
I think the next 3 picks, we might all pick the same team. So I'm going to go a little rapid fire here, if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. So Titans, Bengals. We're all going Titans, right?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Chiefs, Jets. We're all going Chiefs, right?
If there was ever a game that should be an absolute 100% stone cold lock, this is the game.
I really wish I lived in Vegas and I had like $100 because I'd put it on the Jets just to see what would happen, because the odds on that have got to be fantastic.
I think the Chiefs are a 19-point favorite.
That sounds right. So yeah,
What's the over on that game?
On the, let's see, the over is 49. I think the Chiefs might score 49.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. If I had $100, I think I'm going to bet the over on that one. Next one is the Colts, Lions. Anybody taking the Lions in this one?
Not this week. Colts.
See, I'd be in a better position to know if I knew who made the picks and who was winning, because I might just go the opposite way of Ralph just so I could catch up. But
I think I had a bad week this week, so you probably caught up without even knowing it.
I don't know, man. You've been kicking my ass this year. But I guess I'll go with Ralph and I'll go with the Colts.
Well, that's why I said I feel like all of us were going to go the same way on the first so many of these, and then it's going to get really interesting real quick.
Look, the Lions don't play the Falcons every week, okay?
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to go Colts on that one as well, just for the record. Next game, this is going to be a pick 'em. So we got the Steelers versus the Ravens.
Ooh,
that's going to be a good game.
That is going to be a good game. And I think my hatred of the Steelers is going to make me pick the Ravens no matter what. So I'm going to go with the Ravens.
I will take a photo of my predictions and send them to you to prove that I'm not just copying you. But Ravens, they're coming off of a bye. They're a good team. Pittsburgh 6-0. It's going to be in their head. They just came off of a tough game against the Titans. I think they're riding that mental wave, and I think the Ravens are going to be fresh and coming off that bye, and that's the edge for me.
Ralph, if you don't make any different picks, how am I supposed to catch you? This is ridiculous. Ralph's going to win by default just by cheating. He goes after me every week.
I think I'm going to have to go Steelers on this one, just to go the opposite way. I still feel like
idiot.
I don't have it. Well, hey, we'll see. I might be. I very well might be in this one, but I'm a little down on the Ravens right now, riding a little high with the Steelers. So I'm just going to go with my first impressions on this one, and that was Steelers.
Why are you down on the Ravens right now?
Just because, man, the last couple of games, they haven't shown up as much as I wanted them to. I don't think their defense, the same conversation we have with Seattle. Like, If your defense can't show up and can't stop people, you have to be perfect for that game. And Lamar has shown in the playoffs he cannot be perfect. And so in big games that matter,
or is this the middle of the regular season?
I'm finishing my thought. In big games that matter, like this one, where you're dealing with an undefeated team and you're coming off that bye week, that's a big game. You need momentum coming off the bye. I feel like that's a possibility that the Steelers might catch them in this one. I really like the way the Steelers defense looks this year.
Yeah, they've got a good defense.
All right, next one is the Rams Dolphins. Anybody taking the Dolphins in this one?
I am.
I'm close, but I just don't think there's enough around Tua for him to do well. And I think that the Rams have a pretty good defense. So I'm gonna go with the Rams.
Are you legitimately taking the Dolphins?
I am. I think this is going to be one of those games that could be the upset of the week.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
It's a gut feeling. I think they're going to catch him. I think they're going to, Tua might, I have no idea what he's going to do, but I just think the idea of having him in the game is going to give that team a boost. If it lasts them their first drive or the whole game, I don't know. But if there's any game on the docket this week that could be an upset, I think this is the one. And I'll just take a shot. Let's go Dolphins.
All right. I already wrote Rams, so I'm going to go Rams. You almost talked me into it, though. And I will say the Dolphins are playing at home, and their defense has been hot. So it's a definite possibility. I feel you, Ralph. I totally get where you're coming from on this. You seriously almost talked me into it, but my heart is telling me that I need to not do that. So I'm going to go Rams.
Hold on a second. This is a 12 game, and this is a noon game, and they're playing East Coast. And with
1 o'clock,
that means that they're going to have to fly in either super late the night before or really early before the game.
Yeah, but the Rams are notoriously good at traveling.
Yeah, but that is where one of their losses came from, was a West Coast game. I'll stick with the Rams, but wow, that is close.
Yeah, same here, man. I definitely feel like I could go either way. So good on you, Ralph. Good on taking the step on the ledge there. Next one I think is also going to be complicated. We have the Patriots at the Bills. What do you guys think?
Bills.
I have the Bills circled, but do you ever bet against Bill Belichick?
Yes, and this is the season to do it.
This is the season to do it because he just doesn't have the personnel in place to be able to outcoach. I mean, he can only coach so far. It's the players that make the plays. So I'll go Bills.
I think I might have been thinking Pats until Stidham came in and then immediately just miffed that snap. It's like, oh man, this is not going to be a good year for you, Bill, is it? But hey, man, we could all eat our words. I mean, how many times the Patriots made me regret betting against them? But I'll take the Bills on this one too. Next on the docket, we have the Raiders versus the Browns.
I'm going to go with the Raiders bouncing back, and I don't think the Browns are anywhere near as good as their record reflects.
Well, we do differ on one, Paul.
Yes.
I think the Raiders are I don't think they're as good as they appear to be. And I think the Browns are playing pretty well. I think Baker's going to continue slinging that ball around, and I'll go Browns.
I'm going to go Raiders on this one. I feel like they're just the better all-around team right now. I feel like they're just a step above where the Browns are at this time, so I'm going to go Raiders. Next game we have is, I think, another one we could just say is it's the Chargers versus the Broncos. Anybody taking the Broncos?
Nope.
Yeah, I didn't think so. All right.
How about Justin Herbert? I did not see that coming. I really didn't.
Me either.
Fantastic. He's already had at least 2 touchdowns I know of that are over 75 yards. The guy has just been a beast. I did not see it at all. And so, yes, I 100% agree.
And the dude looks like he's still in high school. Do you see all that acne that dude's got?
Oh, dude. It's not as bad as Carson Wentz when they got on Carson in the past. But, yeah, it's not great.
I thought if an Oregon quarterback was going to be good, it was going to be Marcus Mariota. And so I didn't see Justin Herbert coming, but good for him. Like, good for that kid.
Next one, we'll have to see if BDN Nick Foles can find the blue pills against the Saints. What do you guys think? Bears or Saints?
Saints. The Bears have really they're a mirage.
They're so bad. So the Saints are bad because they don't have playmakers, because Michael Thomas wants less to do with them than, I don't know, Kanye West wants to do with Ray J and Kim Kardashian in the same room together nowadays. But I
have no idea what you just said there.
I do. Sorry, go ahead.
All right, I will go with the Saints.
I don't know if I should be proud or upset that I don't know any of those.
Don't worry about it. Moving on.
Okay. I'm going to go with proud.
Okay,
Yeah,
who are you
that's
thinking
wrong.
for the game? We're not worried about that.
What are we talking about again?
I'll tell you later. Just pick your pick.
I said Saints.
Okay, thank you. All right, Saints. I'm going to go Saints as well. I don't need to say anything. I'm just moving on. Compose myself here. All right, next one is going to be another interesting pick. I'm going to be curious to see where we go with this one. The latter part of the afternoon is going to be the 49ers versus the Seahawks.
I got to take the Seahawks on this one, but the 49ers keep proving me wrong. I mean, they just keep having injuries, yet they're still winning.
Seahawks are at home, just so you know.
I don't think home games matter this year.
I know,
unless it's a West Coast team traveling to the East Coast for the early game. But I don't think Russell's going to lose 2 games in a row.
Same for me, Seattle. I mean, 49ers beat them the first time, right? So just don't see it happening again.
Yep. All right. So Seahawks times 3 for all of us on that one. Dallas week, Birds versus the Cowboys in the Sunday night game. Who we going with?
The Cowboys do not have a team right now, as we saw with that Dalton hit. So I'm going to go with the team and go with the Birds.
I didn't know if your inner smartass would let you do that or not. I was like, man, Paul might actually go Dallas. I don't know.
See, I'm a little torn because I think that if Ezekiel Elliott can play like the old Ezekiel Elliott of the last couple of years, then I think he by himself can beat the Eagles. But Zeke of this year has fumbleitis, and they don't have a quarterback. Come on, how are you letting a 7th round rookie out of powerhouse James freaking Madison be the quarterback in an NFL game? What are you doing?
Do you feel a little bit better about what I said before with that they gave Zeke a bad contract?
I'd still like his contract. Well, let me get this. I don't think you ever pay running backs because I don't think that there's a huge difference between the 5th best running back and the 15th best running back. So I wouldn't have paid out of that. That being said, somebody was going to pay Zeke. And I think that Zeke is just having a bad year, and everyone's allowed a bad year. I still think the rest of his contract, he'll be fine.
He left his heart in Cabo. Ralph?
If there's ever a week where you can say I'm not just going with my heart, the Cowboys are decimated. Their defense is terrible. No quarterback to speak of. You might as well take the lunch lady from the Cowboys lunchroom and throw them in at defensive end and hope that she can get some pressure. But I really think that I think the Eagles, this is their game to lose. I don't see it happening.
They better not. I'm going to pick the Birds in this one. Dallas has cut the vast majority of their starting defensive lineup as far as their defensive line goes. They traded away Everson Griffin for a conditional 6th round pick, not even a 6th rounder, a conditional 6th rounder. And then on top of that, they also cut Dontari Poe and another gentleman as well. I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now. But that's 4 guys on their defensive line that they have gotten rid of after last week's game. So I think that right there can tell you a lot of what you need to know. I really thought them having Van Der Esch back was going to be a big boost for them, and it doesn't seem like it has been. But I'm happy that he's been able to stay healthy because any guys with neck stuff just makes me scared, and I'm glad that he's been able to keep on the up and up, but definitely picking Birds on this one. All right, guys, last game. I think this is another one where I'm like, do I even need to ask? Bucks Giants, Monday Night Football. Does America lose?
Danny Dimes. He is. I'm looking forward to another 80-yard run where he goes 23 miles an hour and falls over a mosquito. I don't know. No, come on.
He might go 80 yards backwards when he gets tackled by Devin White.
Yeah, no, Bucks are going to roll in this one.
All right. Ralph, we don't have to even ask, right, Bucks?
No, of course. I mean, there's no choice there.
Perfect. So we'll definitely go through our totals again next week in the predictions as far as everything goes. We'll I don't think we'll do the power rankings next week, but maybe we'll bring back our MVP chat since now things are getting a little more spicy in the NFL. Since we're getting ready to wrap things up, anything that we missed, guys? Anything you guys want to bring up?
No, I think I'm good.
Yeah, no, same here.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank everybody out there for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe. If you do subscribe, make sure you hit the little bell icon, because otherwise YouTube will not tell you that we dropped a new video most of the time. But make sure that you let us know what you think in the comments section below. Let us know what you liked. Let us know if you didn't like something, so that way we can change it and we can move on from there. So thank you guys again, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Goodbye now.
Take care.
Thanks.
You told me it was my turn.
You can talk all that you want to, yell and scream, you lost.
It is my turn.
You lost the game. Take as long as you want, you still lost.